Like the four beasts in John and Ezekiel, eyes were an important feature of Daniel's dreadful and terrible beast, the last beast in his visionary tetramorph. In Daniel's case, the eyes were inside a small horn, which in turn was nested inside 10 larger horns. This beast was a decidedly different symbolic creature from the other beasts, as Daniel recognized. Still, the imagery of the dreadful and terrible beast fits the archetype to a T. We know from our previous episode that the eyes of John's four beasts were the eyes of the Lamb, which was a de facto fifth beast before the throne. The eyes of the Lamb and the four beasts were based upon the plasma streamers of Venus, both in an off-axis and on-axis view. The eyes were before, behind, and encircling the Lamb and the four beasts. From an earlier episode, we know that it was these same plasma jets, 7 in number, that also formed the horns of the Lamb. With this in mind, it becomes inevitable that the beasts of the tetramorph would have both eyes and horns, and that the eyes and horns would symbolically be identical. What this means is that with the streamers forming the horns of the Lamb, and therefore the horns of Daniel's dreadful and terrible beast, these horns would have eyes, since the eyes of the Lamb and the beast are found at the end of the streamers, now interpreted as horns. Of course, John's apocalyptic vision is not an exercise of symbolism for symbolism's sake. The beasts and their features have meaning. In the case of the eyes, Joseph Smith asked the Lord what they meant. The Lord responded, saying that the eyes represented light and knowledge. We will treat the meaning of the beasts themselves in later episodes. Each of John's four beasts had 6 wings. This is consistent with Ezekiel's 4 beasts, which also had wings. 2 of Daniel's beasts had wings as well. This particular depiction of the tetramorph captures the essential iconography of the original archetype, the 4 plasma streams of Venus extending at right angles from Venus and Mars in the center. The 4 streamers, used as the symbolic origin of the beasts themselves, become their wings. Daniel's beast with 4 wings is an exact parallel. In John's case, there are 2 wings extending upwards and downwards, where there would logically be only 1. This gives the beast 6 wings, also counting 1 wing in each horizontal direction. Iconographically speaking, the 4 beasts of John are seraphs. Seraphs are described in Scripture by the prophet Isaiah, who saw them in vision. In form, the seraphim of Isaiah and the beasts of John are nearly identical. They both have 6 wings, with the one exception being that the human face is retained in the center of both the tetramorph and the seraphim, while in the seraphim, the 3 animal faces are missing. Seraphim are mentioned earlier in Scripture in a more literal setting. When the people of Israel complained about the lack of bread and water, the Lord sent fiery serpents into the camp, killing many. The Hebrew word translated as fiery serpent is seraph. The plural is seraphim, the same word Isaiah used for the beings above the throne of God. Seraphim can refer to venomous snakes or to the mythological beasts of Isaiah. Isaiah adds an important detail about the fiery serpents, the seraphim, in later prophecies. The Book of Mormon confirms this detail. The fiery serpents were capable of flight. This is not as far-fetched as it may seem. There are modern examples of flying snakes. Of course, we are talking about the mythological version of the seraphim within the context of John's revelation. Still, it is important to understand the connection to the terrestrial, fiery flying serpents of Moses, also called seraphim. The root meaning of the Hebrew seraph provides evidence to understand the archetype behind the mythological beasts. Seraph comes from saraph, which means to burn. Hence, seraphim are fiery serpents. This is the reason that the mythological seraphim are portrayed with bright red wings as if they were burning flames. This is wholly consistent with the original archetype, where the plasma streamers look like flames of lamps or torches. In addition to their fiery brightness, the plasma streamers from Venus had a serpentine quality, which became associated with the seraphim. Plasma is fluid in its movement, often looking like a writhing snake. We know from representations of the ancient configuration by human observers that the cometary eruptions from Venus were snake-like in appearance. During the plague of the fiery serpents, the Lord commanded Moses to make a fiery serpent and put it on a pole. Those Israelites who exercised faith and looked upon the serpent on the pole lived. The Hebrew states that the Lord commanded Moses to make a seraphim and put it on a pole. This makes the commandment somewhat ambiguous, since the seraphim Moses was commanded to make could have been a likeness of the terrestrial fiery flying serpents or a likeness of the mythological beast of Isaiah and John. In either case, that Moses was to put the seraphim upon a pole, which was a direct analog to the axis mundi, argues that the archetype formed the basis of the serpentine healing amulet.